Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm installing the Pegas Chuck Heads onto my Excalibur EX21. I got these from Bearwood Supply Company. The information will be in the description of how you can contact them for anything related to woodworking. These came well packaged, great design. I was very impressed with the quality and design of this chuck head. Everything you need to make this replacement is included in the package, including all the hardware. Very simple and straightforward to do with minimal tools. Unfortunately, I don't have all the sizes of the Allen wrenches or the sockets. It was easy enough to figure out. I decided to take the table off. That was huge because I'm not a contortionist, nor do I have good eyesight trying to do the lower head below the table. 4 bolts, simple enough. It wasn't a problem or an issue to take it off and put it back on later on. So having said that, I quickly realized that when I took this table off, the weight of this table was at least half the weight of the entire machine. I thought that was kind of interesting. With the table off, it's wide open access to everything you need to do to change these heads. Now, there's only 2 bolts on this to change them out. Very simple, very straightforward. It's just a matter of doing it. I was a little nervous about this until I realized there's nothing to it. I wanted to start with the lower one. I never had any issue with the lower chuck head. It was fine. The blade went in and out just fine. But obviously, I'm not going to put a new one on top and not the same new one on the bottom. I've heard about the Pegas Chuck Heads for a long time, and I initially wanted to do that immediately when I got this saw, but at $100 for the kit, I just couldn't put out any more money after paying for the saw. Putting the new one back on is just reverse of what I took it off. Now, the hardware consists of the nut, the bolt, washers, and a bushing or a sleeve, where I call them bushings. Since the bushings came out last, they go in first, and they will hold the head in place for you to tighten it down and put the rest of the hardware in. Hindsight being 2020, I would have had the hardware ready prior to the installation, but for video purposes, it's a very realistic view of what you're up against with reinstalling this. Now, when putting in the bottom chuck, lining it up was a little tedious, and the sleeve did not want to go all the way through. It went through the arm, it went through to the other side, and for some reason I couldn't get it to pop through the other side of the chuck. So I ended up putting a Allen wrench through the hole and tapping it in, because I didn't want to mistakenly hit the head or do any damage by using a hammer, and it didn't need much force. It was just a little bit and it popped right in. Now, when you put the screws in and tighten them down, it is not necessary to put great force in tightening them due to the fact that they have nylon threads in the nuts. Once they're tightened snug so that there's no play left to right, those nuts will not back off from the vibration of the machine. For the Pegas hardware, I had to use a different Allen wrench than the one I used to remove the old hardware. Not a big deal. Again, whatever size, I just don't know. I have hundreds of Allen wrenches. I just found one that fit. This Allen wrench happens to fit a lot of the equipment in my shop, so I keep it handy in a spot that I can use it whenever I need to, so I don't have to search for it all the time. You're going to do the same thing with the top chuck that you did with the bottom. Remove the old hardware, install the new chuck. But this was the reason I had to buy this new set. I'm not sure what this chuck head is made with, but the thread stripped. It was the bottom line, and it rendered it unusable to me for the last week. The nice thing about that was, though, I was able to plane more wood reorganized my shop. I got a lot of things done this past week that, had I had a functioning scroll saw, wouldn't have got done otherwise. While the bottom chuck was a little tight getting it off, the top one came off quite easily. There's a big difference in how these two chuck heads look. The old one is a two-part system with movable parts on it, and the Pegas is one solid unit and quite a bit smaller and, in my mind, more efficient. From all my past videos, you know I use a lot of Steve Good designs, and that's where I first heard about the Pegas Chuck Head. Once I heard about it, I did a lot more research, and I've never heard anything negative about these chuck heads on various different machines other than the Pegas machine. They make them for a variety of different scroll saws. Some are a little cheaper. Mine happen to be $100. Steve Good highly recommends it. Bear Woods has his reviews on their website, so that kind of tells me that this was going to be a good move on my part. As I was installing the thumb screws, I had to back off the set screw on the left because it was all the way in, and I eyeballed center from the thumb screw to the set screw. Now it does have a locking nut on it, and I did not tighten that down until after I put this back together and get a blade in to make sure I'm perpendicular to the table. Once the table's back on, ooh, can't wait now. You know, it's been a whole week since I've used this scroll saw. I tell ya, I was going through withdrawals, there's no doubt in my mind. But honestly, I really believe that these new chuck heads are going to make all the difference on how I scroll and how this machine works. I just can't see it going any other way. Time to get the blade in. Putting it in the bottom was very simple. Putting it in the top was wow, once I got it where it needed to be. And trying to eyeball whether it's in the center or not. I got out my gauge that you may have seen in the previous video for the maintenance to make sure I was perpendicular to the table. Scary but true, it was perfectly aligned. So I guess I eyeballed it correctly. I'll give you a closer shot of that right now. I couldn't believe it. That's why I didn't lock down those nuts on the left-hand side. The blade is now in. I'm going to get the lock nuts on the left side and get them secured so that that bolt doesn't wander out. I'm going to do a few test cuts, but I'm not going to be working on this piece this week. This was enough. One thing I noticed right off the gate, taking the blade out the top and putting it back in was way easier. I'm only doing test cuts in this video. Next week I can give you a better assessment of how I feel about these new chuck heads, because I still have over half this piece to cut. Thank you so much for watching. If you can give me a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.